Hello and welcome to another edition of my music and conversation show here on Facebook and YouTube. Wednesdays, that's right, and excited to be back to chat with another wonderful friend and probably one of the greatest saxophone players in the world. So I know that's quite an introduction. Let's bring it right on here, Mr. NAJEE. How you doing, buddy?
Man.
Well, you know what? Hey, by the way, listen to that tune, man. That is, not only are you one of the greatest saxophone players in the world, but you're one of the greatest flautists too. And it really, I'm sorry, I don't know, can I say this? It really pisses me off because you're so good at both. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get bleeped out.
Listen, man, I don't know if this will help you. You see that alto behind there, right? Gold-plated Selmer alto behind me.
Yeah.
I don't play that thing because after hearing cats like you, I can't make it sound like that, so I leave it alone, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, I forbid you to play that alto because there's no doubt you picked that thing up. You'd be amazing in that too.
No. Trust me, man. I learned my lesson. Listen, you can't do everything, so.
How are you? So great to have you on the show here. These have been, what's so fun about these shows here, different than my staged shows, which is mostly just performances and so on, is I get to know more about my friends that I and I've known you for a long time, but I get to know so much in-depth information of my friends, and it's fun to have that. When I see you again, I could, it just takes on another sort of depth of the relationship. So how are you, man? It's so great to have you on.
Can't complain, man. I'm just here at home. We're just starting to get on the road a little bit. I mean, little dates here and there. We're not doing anything consistently heavy yet. But I got to say, this last couple of weeks have been a lot of fun, not too much, but just enough to just enjoy what we do, and still be in touch with the audience. So that's been good.
That's awesome. I always like to start going back to the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I've obviously heard your music on the radio, and actually your former manager was a good friend of mine, and I remember seeing you almost as soon as I moved to America in the early 90s. But I know it started way earlier for you, so I don't even want to talk about the albums. Let's go even further back, right? New York, is that?
That's my hometown, born and raised. I was born in Manhattan. At the age of 11, we moved to Queens, area called Jamaica, Queens, which anybody who's flown in the airports like LaGuardia or JFK, that's Jamaica, general Jamaica area. Same area as Donald Trump, but he lived in the rich area, which is North Jamaica, Queens, and I lived in South Jamaica, Queens, where the projects were. So I always say my musical started to blossom. My musical career started to blossom at a young age there. Queens, playing in local bands and that kind of thing. From the same area as Marcus Miller, we lived in the same area. We knew each other as kids. And that was the thing, man. We just played in local bands until that evolved into, after high school, I did my first world tour with a group called Area Code, and we traveled around the world for the USO, at the age of 18. And then things went on from there, school and, touring with different people. And, in 1986, I did my first album, which was really an R&B record, by the way. It wasn't a jazz record. They called it jazz, but hey, I'll take what they give me, Yeah.
So did you get a record deal pretty early on? Because I remember you making music from way back then, but I would have almost thought that you would have had some touring gigs and some professional sort of tours before you got a record deal.
I did. My record deal kind of came sideways because I was known as a sideman in New York. As a matter of fact, in the 80s, the early 80s, there wasn't a whole lot of work in the New York City area. I had just come back from Boston, going to school up there, and there was no work for a saxophone player. So I was playing as a second keyboard player in bands in New York, and I would take like one sax solo a night. Just so happened that in 1983, I got hired by Shaka Khan, my brother and I both, and we went on this tour, the Ain't Nobody tour, and I met Melissa Morgan, who was a great R&B vocalist, and she signed her first deal at Capitol Records. And she invited me to play on her album. And her manager at the time, Charles Huggins, he said, "Man, I didn't know you played saxophone. I thought you were a keyboard player." I was like, "Nah, man, that's what I do." And he said, "Oh, well, I'm thinking about signing a jazz artist." And that's how it all started. He said, bring me some demos. I brought him a bunch of demos, and he signed me to a production deal, which was with EMI at the time, EMI Capital. And we did this album, Najee's Theme, which was really an R&B record with an out-of-tune soprano. And next thing I knew, within a few months, we had a gold record, first one. So that's how it happened. It was just fate that way, But it wasn't like I was actively shopping for a record deal. I didn't really have the aspiration that way. It just kind of fell to me that way. And but I had a lot of experience touring and all that stuff long before that.
So you literally started as a keyboard player.
Well, no, I'm a sax player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but in the 80s, when there was no work going on, after I left Shaka's band in New York City trying to scrounge for work, I moved back from Boston back to New York, and the only gigs that were available is if you played something other than just saxophone.
Right.
So I was like the second keyboard player that played sax to take sax solos. That's pretty
it's funny. I actually did that too. I was not a very good keyboard player, but I could play the utility stuff. I could do
that was me.
yeah. I mean, and I later on learned more stuff, so I can actually play chords and a little more in-depth stuff. As a matter of fact, for my shows in the recent years, I play the whole intro to Everything Must Change on keyboards.
Oh,
so I very politely asked the keyboard if I can borrow his keyboard doing the show.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So I go and play the intro, and then the whole band starts. But it's kind of it's fun to do that. But one of my first thing as a second keyboard player was when I started touring with Randy Crawford, because I took over from a guy where you needed those both things. There's only so much sax in sort of popular music, right? So
exactly right.
In order for that to make sense, I was hired also. That's very funny, because I was hired to play sax, but also some utility keyboards, or second keyboards. And one of her big songs, of course, is Street Life. Right? Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no, hold on a second. Let me think about, of course, which was a sax solo, but there was another song she had where it was a flute solo. I think it was a Rio de Janeiro Blue.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Right. It's a flute solo, right? Isn't that? Yeah.
Right, I believe so.
Yeah. Well, that didn't happen.
Back in the mid 80s.
Yeah. And it was a flute solo. So I used an iwi, which is an electronic wind instrument, triggering a keyboard to play, because I couldn't play flute. I told you right before we go on here that, I'm talking, ladies and gentlemen, you are, this is one of the greatest flute players in the world. Also, and I started playing flute. I said, okay, well, it's so close to the instrument of saxophones, same fingerings, and you just have to figure out how to get the air into that little hole. And I got so frustrated. I bought a student flute just in case that it didn't work out, and I got so frustrated trying to get the air down in that hole, that I threw it out. I mean, when I say I threw it out, I literally threw it out. I didn't want to see it again. So to hear you play flute like that is just such a it's such a joy, and it reminds me why I shouldn't be playing flute.
No. I was beginning to tell you the story, but the reason why flute became a major part of my personality was when I was 16, my saxophones were stolen. I was at a rehearsal Christmas Eve, and we were rehearsing for a gig on New Year's at the age of 16. And Christmas morning, these guys come to my house and they say, man, we got some bad news, man. And I'm like, what? They said your horns were stolen. I was like, what? So for a year, all I had was a flute. And but it was such a blessing, because I got to study at Jazzmobile in New York City, which was a federally funded program at the time, where I got to study with Jimmy Heath and his master class on flute, Frank West, Ernie Wilkins, all these great jazz legends that played with the Lington and Count Basie Orchestra. And then I also had the opportunity to study at Manhattan School of Music with Harold Jones, who was one of the flautists for the New York Symphony Orchestra. So I had no choice. And even then I wasn't very developed, but I was, Harold Jones was very, very difficult, very hard on me, and I had no choice. So that's how it became a part of my life.
Isn't that interesting in our careers, how much that really happens by accident?
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
And I mean, we try to plan out exactly how this thing's going to go. And it usually doesn't go that way. It
No,
goes the exact opposite way.
you know that saying, man. They say if you want to make God laugh, make a plan. You know,
Right, right, and it really is true. And what you think's going to happen doesn't happen. What you have no even idea that just kind of comes to you like by accident, and so you almost have to. I've learned to just trust in the process that it's going to be okay, and
that's right.
Whatever happens, just trust that you're being taken care of, and things are just going to work out
And
the way they're supposed to be. And who are we to say that that's not the way it's supposed to be?
Listen, man. I read this article one time where it said that 95% of the things we ever worry about never come to pass. So what's the point of worrying?
Yeah. That is very true. Hey, so we talked a little bit about Chaka Khan, which obviously is another unbelievable singer and musician. But I noticed that, and this is something I'm very curious about. These gentlemen right here, tell me a little bit about that. And I, by the way, didn't realize Stanley Clarke was so big. But George Duke and Stanley Clarke and you, tell me a little bit about that whole thing.
That was an album I recorded which was actually my last album on Capital EMI, Songs from the Key of Life, which was a tribute to Stevie Wonder. And George Duke produced that album. And I believe that was a session that we did where Stanley was actually featured on a song. So that's where that photo came from. Haven't seen that in years. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
I try to do my
like a little man, boy.
Is he?
Tall, but
right, but you're not that. I remember. I just saw you. I mean, he must be what 6'4", 5", something.
6'5",
Yeah.
something
wow.
Like that.
Amazing. And then to finish up some of I did hopefully my due diligence today, but you also worked a bit with Quincy Jones, isn't that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Not on record, but in live
Yeah.
on few occasions at Montreux in Switzerland, the Atlantis, when the Atlantis Hotel in the Bahamas opened, I was part of the orchestra that played, with him, and do different things throughout the year. So I have done some with Quincy, one of the greatest people in the world, as you know. So.
Wow. Yeah, I had it was interesting because I met him. It was a television show that was being. It was a television show, a movie about. No, it was a television show and concert about Ellis Fitzgerald, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was there and got a chance to meet him, and I didn't realize he was married to a Swedish. So
right.
He had a Swedish wife, so he starts speaking Swedish to me, which I'm Danish, so it's not that far away. I was really surprised that. But he was, he was there. I think he was producing that TV special, and he was standing with a stack of charts in his hand, and he was meeting everybody, and he stopped and just, hey man, who are you? And I hear an accent. Where are you from? Denmark. And then he started speaking. He just took all the time in the world. What a sweet guy. What a sweet guy.
Yeah, he is.
And talking about a sweet guy, you're a sweet guy, Najee. You unselfishly said yes to be on my stage at show some months ago, and during the crazy pandemic we had, and as you know, I've had many guests on the show, but you were definitely on the bucket list. And when I asked you to do it, you were like, "Come on, let's do it." And I really appreciate that
my pleasure.
very much. I during this time it was so heartfelt, and it was so lovely to see how all our artist community came together and sort of supported each other, because we were all crazy sidelined and didn't really know what all of this meant for us and when we could get back on the road. And I started this concert series on Stage It, which have been one of the most incredible experiences, because I'm able to get up every day and have something to work on. We can't go on the road. And then when I started incorporating special guests, you were definitely, I said, that was sort of a bucket list for me. But I want to get a few behind me, so I kind of knew what I was doing. So
honestly, that was the only one I've ever done was yours. I've been invited to do a few of those, and I don't know, man. I don't know why I didn't do them. I just, but because you're such a great player, I was like, man, it'd be an honor to play with you.
Man, that just makes it even more
over the
special.
years that I've heard you and I've known you, I've always loved your playing, and
Thank you.
I've always told you that. And to finally have the opportunity to play with you on something, that was our very first time. So
it was, and I hope much more to come. I mean, I actually had a great, and I it's funny when I always try before I ask, I always try to think what tune would make the most special duet.
Right.
What is a good fit? And I also, what would NAJEE like to play? And I know you're old school, and you like the old, especially old soul and R&B saxophone players. So what better than a song by the great King Curtis? And then you say, oh man, I like this tune here. So you know what we should do? Why don't we run the song and let and let people see our duet? Okay, let's do that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is NAJEE and myself from my staged show. Was it earlier this year or last year?
Yeah, it was. No, it was
earlier this year, right? Yeah,
February or something.
Yeah. And a classic King Curtis tune called "In the Pocket." Let's check it out.
Hey,
all right. All
man,
right.
That's some back in the New York days, man.
You know,
all that stuff, boy. I tell you.
and what you know, that's the thing. It just, I don't know if you could see me grooving and moving over here because it's such a happy, positive song, but it's perfect for two saxes, you know, and with the octaves and the harmonies and are you sure you're not playing an alto with those harmonies over there?
You're the reason. See, it's guys like you the reason why I don't play alto, man. It's so clearly and so easily, you know. I mean, it's a lot of work for me to play up that high on alto, man. I can't do it.
Oh man.
Yeah, I got to, you know, as a man, I got to know my limitations. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen. We need to do this song live sometime. You know, we need you jump up in my set, I'll jump up in yours, wherever it works. You know,
we'll make it happen.
Well, we need to make that happen.
Place, I'll make sure the band knows it. If I know you're there, we'll okay. You know, and the same vice versa. You know.
Okay. Well, listen. You know, it's that was a lot of fun. That really, and thanks again for being on my stage show. It's so lovely to have you on there. Thank you, Najee.
My pleasure.
Yeah. One of the other things which is such an important from a world and a political standpoint, but you were a part of Nelson Mandela's birthday celebration.
Yes.
I mean, that to me is just, I mean, what he stood for was just remarkable, and what he endured was just incredible. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I was part of a delegation. Shaka went there. Who else? Stevie. We went with Stevie and Shaka and a few other artists. And we did 2 concerts, one in Durban, one in Johannesburg. And when we were in Johannesburg, we were invited to the presidential residence to have lunch with him. So one of my favorite pictures I have is he and I, my brother, together, the 3 of us, taking a picture there at the presidential residence when he was alive. And I tell you, you know what? As big of a man he was, his spirit, you felt at home with him, like he was just a friend. You know, I don't know if you've been around people like that. You know, this people of that. You know, I felt the same way around Bill Clinton. You know, they were
you know, I was just about to say that.
You just feel like you don't feel like they're bigger than you. You know, even though the world is bigger than yours. You know, but. Yeah, it always a wonderful memory for me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been an incredible moment for you personally to get to meet this man that stood for so much and stood for so much right, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, what were you up to? What did you? I know you live somewhere in little rural Florida, right? Were you fixing up your garden, and you know, what were you doing?
And I finally went in some closets I hadn't been in seriously in a couple of years. And I found I had all these cases of saxophones. But honestly, man, it was actually for me. I had not been off the road in probably 37 years or so, and so to have a year at home was actually ended up being a good thing for me. I mean, outside of losing people, we lost some close family members and things like that. But I got to say, though, the year being home was actually a good reset. And I spent a lot of time I did a lot of records for other people, man. Like people seem to call it, like you mentioned the flute thing. I always get calls for flute, you know, so I'm like, you guys don't like my sax playing, so I got to do.
Yeah, I know that's not the case, but yeah, I mean, so it was really about staying busy. You know, I mean, I created these virtual shows that, you know, and I've said this before, many of the people tuning in know that, you know, I knew nothing about all of the technology part of it. I had a studio here at my house, so audio I was okay with, but lighting and cameras and stuff and what we had to learn during this time, or what I had to learn. But I took it as a project. I mean, I just wanted to sort of master that. And you know what's been cool about it is that even though the shows are coming back now, I'll still continue doing some show because I built such a beautiful community, and we're like, it's friendships and people that I really, really care about. So so I'm going to continue, not at the same pace, but certainly continue.
Sure. Yeah.
But you managed to make an album in 2019, which I'm assuming Center of the Heart is your latest album, or
it's the most current.
Yeah,
it's been out about 2 years now. Yeah, we're going on 2 years. It's been out, so
tell us a little bit about that.
What can I say, man? I don't go into an album with a plan. Just find material that I like doing. I mean, I did do a remake of the Burt Bacharach classic Alfie. I think I sent that to you. It was like a orchestral version of that
Yeah.
on flute. Took
Yeah.
a chance on that because the song's been done a lot.
Yeah.
We had one R&B single that did very well with Kenny Lattimore and I at
Oh, cool. Yeah.
radio that did very well for us. And that's pretty much it, man. You
Yeah.
do about 2 or 3 singles off a record these days, and then that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And I know you're working on a new one, or because you were working with one of my collaborators, Barry Eastman. You guys have
Yes,
been working
yes.
together. Yeah, we did
Yeah,
three
Barry.
albums together. Yeah, so
Yeah, Barry is one of my favorite people, man. We go
Yeah.
back many years,
Wow.
from New York together. And actually, he and my brother worked together a lot more back in the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
Brother played guitar on a lot of
Yeah.
those R&B records back then, So,
Right.
yeah.
And so what's next? More. When is that? By the way, when is that album coming out?
I have no idea. Man, I really don't know.
How far?
I'm still
How
in-
far along are you? Like
No.
halfway, or are you all the way, or how you just don't? How far along are you?
I'm not honestly. I'm not very far at all.
Oh, okay.
Just, maybe 2, 3 songs in.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I go by inspiration, and I stay busy, so it's kind of like,
Right.
you know how it is. You get off the road, man. You come home. It takes me at least 3 to 4 days to get acclimated back, and then you got to make sure your mind is set for getting into the music that you're doing at home. So
Right.
yeah.
So what's take me forward in 6 months from today? What more shows?
We
What's,
have
what's up?
we have a pretty. It's a scattered, build up schedule.
Yeah.
So we're taking one day at a time. To be honest with you, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
Well. Look who
look
is on
who's
here.
on here. Just talking about him.
Yeah, just yeah. It's Barry.
One of my favorite people in the industry.
That's right. And I had Kenny Lattimore on here as well, and all of a sudden Barry popped up. I think he might have a little notification when his name comes up. Ding dong. Barry, we all love you, singing your praises. Yeah, yeah. Well, Najee, thank you so much for being on the show here. We could be talking for another hour, but we like to keep it sharp and tight here, and it is such a pleasure having you on, and also making music with you. And I look forward to much more. Whether it's studio or even live, would be wonderful. So
I look forward to it as well, Michael. You're one of my favorite, man. I tell you.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate doing this. It's great to see you and play with you and talk as well. So
Thank you. And what's the best way to keep in touch with you from your social media and website and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, very simple. Najee Official at all the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So Najee Official.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Najee, it was a pleasure. It was painless, right? It was not too...
I didn't have to play, so you...
Oh, wait a second here. I did ask you. No. Oh, my goodness. Then almost got away from me.
I haven't even had a chance. Man, all I got is a student model flute here. My flute is packed away. The other one, I got to send it in for repairs.
Yeah. You can play a soda pop bottle and it'll be great too. Let's hear a couple of notes on that student model flute. Come on.
Here we go. There you go. That's it.
Thank you. By the way, I would have totally let it go, but you reminded me, so thank you very much, buddy.
Oh, man, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Najee, thank you so much.
Thank
buddy.
you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, bro.
Oh, so great to have my buddy on the show, Najee. Great flautist and saxophonist. So thanks for tuning in. A couple little things before we go. I will have a staged show again on July 11th. And it's going to be, let's see here, I'll find it for you here. It's going to be the greatest hits right here, July 11th on Stage It. And how you get a ticket is you go to my website, michaellington.com. It's pay what you can. And all you got to do is just sign up for an account on stageit.com. It's a free account. And then you basically get a ticket, pay what you can. And we'll have you at the show. Taking a couple of weeks off. We're actually leaving town for a little bit, Carrie and I, and then we'll be back with the greatest hits on stage at live stream, where you basically, everybody has a front row ticket. They're a lot of fun, and if you haven't seen the shows yet, wait till you meet these amazing people that have actually been on these shows for almost a year and a half. We had a wonderful community, so I invite you to join me. And lastly, what I wanted to say is, if you have your cell phone in front of you, I want us to keep in close contact, and I want you to be on priority to notifications and be a part of the community. And the way to do that is take your phone out and go to your text. Write a text, and to where the number goes, you write 797979, and then in the subject line, or where you write the actual message, you go ML Sax. Doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase. So text ML Sax to the number 797979, and now you are in touch with me. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. And thanks again to my guest, NAJEE. Pleasure to have him on the show, and pleasure to have you watch. Thank you.